Hey guys, welcome back to the Desert Shield Sniper. This is part two of buying raw 1991 Topps Desert Shield cards online. This video will focus mainly about spotting fakes. Now, I'm by no means an expert, but I'd love to share some of my experience and insight towards buying fakes online. Now, one of the first things that people talk about is about the glowbacks. Now, the top 91 tops have a various variations, I may say, and basically some of them are non-glowbacks, and even with the glowbacks, there's different types of glowbacks. From my knowledge, the Desert Shield cards primarily are glowbacks. Okay, I would say probably 99.9% of the cards are glowbacks, but they could be either one of these glowbacks. And so, what's the difference? Now, this one here, the Topps 40, has a very distinctive glow along with the border. The border is not as distinctive, but it still glows. If you compare it to the non-glowbacks, it's definitely glows, but it's not as distinct as the first. And the Topps 40 doesn't glow, but it's there, but it just doesn't glow. Now the other one, it has a similar distinct glowing border, but while some may argue that the Topps 40 logo doesn't glow, but as you can see in the comparison, and maybe because that it has a darker back, the Topps 40 is slightly glows compared to this one here. And as you can see, also one has a darker back and a lighter back, similar to maybe like a 56 Topps with the gray backs and the white backs, but not as extreme. So if you have a Desert Shield card and the card is under normal lighting, this is the effect that you'll see. Now I'm just going to turn off my LED here, and if I shine a black light towards it, you'll see that this card has a glow back. And this is the version that was at the bottom left of the previous image on my slide, where the Topps 40 doesn't really show. But as you can see, it does kind of glow. It's just that it doesn't glow as much as the other variation. But this is how it'll look under black light. And as you can see, that's the other variation where the Topps 40 glows just as much as the border. But I found that with the Desert Shield set, that you'll have numerous cards that have the Topps 40 glow, and then you'll also have numerous cards where the Topps 40s don't glow, etc. So one thing that I want to talk about is that earlier on, I tried collecting the Desert Shield checklist. So when I finally completed a graded set, I did notice that one of the checklists did not have a glow back. And these are all graded by PSA. They're all PSA 10s. Now, immediately, the thought that came to my mind was that, well, we have a fake card here. I reached out to a couple sellers online, and well, my intention originally was to replace my so-called fake card with another card with a glow back, because all this time the information that was fed to me was that if it's not a glow back, it's fake. As I spoke to other sellers and also some collectors online that had this card, I realized that their copy was also not a glow back. So I'm starting to believe that there may be a small handful of cards from the Desert Shield set that were not glowbacks. And these cards are mainly checklists. And this may be true because now checklists don't have the gold foil. So I think there may be a small chance that um, back in 1990, Topps just inserted some of the base non-glow back checklists into these packs. Now, this is, I'm just guessing. I don't have any information or any source that rectifies this to be true, but I just think that this is very possible, as because the checklist doesn't have a gold foil. Now, on Net 54 in 2017, there was a post about the authenticity of Desert Shield cards, and someone had posted that they bought a recent raw set from eBay, and that just one card did not glow from the 792 card set. Now, then someone asked which card failed the test, the black light glowback test, and they mentioned it was checklist number 5. Now, my checklist was not a checklist number 5. I believe mine was a checklist number 3. However, um, this there was also another person that mentioned that they had a checklist that didn't glow as well, and I think that there is a small chance that the small handful that does not glow back are in this are within the checklists, because I do have checklists that glow back, but I do think that if you do some research online, you'll find that a lot of people will say that there are a small handful, except that for a rare handful, are known to have a glowback. And I think that majority of these cards that don't have a glowback will coincidentally also have no foil, which are the checklists. But there are ways to find out, or at least partially find out, whether or not your checklists are authentic. If you have a corrected error, because these checklists, a lot of them, I think 3 of them, yes, the 131, 33, 66, and the 527, they have errors on them. If your graded Desert Shield card is a corrected checklist, then most likely the grader had made a mistake and graded it as a Desert Shield, but it's actually not a Desert Shield card. And I think that most collectors know this. So, first of all, if you're buying a graded checklist, a Desert Shield checklist, and it's a corrected card, then most likely, like a seasoned collector will most likely not buy it because they know the card inside is definitely not a Desert Shield checklist. Yeah, so how else can we find out whether or not our cards are authentic? And that is from the shield. Now, in front, there's a diagram or photos of 5 shields, 2 real and 3 fakes. Now, the fakes up at the top will be considered as better fakes compared to the ones I'll be showing you very shortly. But basically, when it comes to comparing the fakes with the real foils, there are a few things that you need to keep in mind. First of all, is the detail of the palm trees. Also, whether or not this bottom leaf touches the banner. And as you can see, this touches the banner here. And then the second is the detail of the flag, the shape of the shield, that especially the bottom part of the shield. You'll see some of them have a very sharp shield, which is fake, and then you'll see some that has a very rounded shield. And also, some of the poorly made fakes have a larger size foil compared to the authentic shield. And then lastly, well, no, actually not lastly, The shape of the palm trees, I've noticed with the fakes, as you can see, the bottom here is slightly widens out like an A shape. But if you notice the authentic shield, it doesn't widen. In fact, it narrows. So it's the opposite to the fake. Now, the other thing is also the font. You'll find that with a lot of the fakes, and actually the fonts between the first, second, and third here are slightly different, but you'll see it in a lot of the fakes that you'll have a slightly more bolded lettering compared to the authentic shield. And then once in a while, of course, you'll have one that looks pretty good like this. But overall, you need to spot all these characteristics to kind of find out whether or not you have a authentic or fake Desert Shield card. Now, the first example I want to show you is a larger shield. Okay, this is a larger shield compared to the authentic shield, and it also has a rounded shape. The shape is actually very poorly done. This is a very poorly faked shield. And you can also notice that the detail on the flag is missing, a lot of detail. And there's actually a lot of foil missing. That's why we practically see through the flag. The detail on the palm trees is lacking as well. And also with the font, although this is not a very clear picture, and I apologize for that, it's very distinct, sort of like what I say about the extra boldedness of the font. So that's something, and then we have the bottom of the shield too, where the shape is a bit too rounded compared to the authentic Desert Shield foil. In this second example, this is the Will Clark. Um, we have a variation of the first example with the Nolan Ryan card. As you can see, this is what we call the fuzziness of the fake shields. And now let's not confuse ourselves with fuzziness with overstamping. So we mentioned in the previous video that overstamping is where the stamp of the foil was pressed slightly harder and we get a bit of bleeding outside the edge. But as you can see, that's not this case here. And the fuzziness is actually probably made by like a very poor quality stamp. And you'll see with the edges, sure, it's a bit of bleeding, but it also has like these hair-like fuzziness, and that's why we call that fuzziness. And you'll see that also when it comes to finer detail areas where the font is very unclear, and then the detail of the flag is pretty much like squished together, and you can't really see the stars, you can't see the stripes. Once again, the shape of the shield is quite off. I wouldn't be able to say that this is an oversized stamp, but I think most likely, considering how it looks. Uh, but definitely the shape is slightly off compared to the authentic Desert Shield foil. Once again, another example, we have practically next to none detail, a lot of fuzziness with the text, also lack of detail with the palm trees, and also a very, although this bottom part of the shield is getting closer to the authentic shield, but overall the shape is quite off. And I won't be able to really tell you how exactly um, you can tell whether or not the shield is, the shape of the shield is off. But as you look at more Desert Shield cards and you have some experience with the fakes, at a first glance, you'll be able to spot it immediately. So some people will tell you that, with the fakes, you just have to worry about like the star players or the Hall of Famers. Now, I just want to bring an example out to your attention where this is not necessarily true. Now, um, Jack Clark here, and no offense to the player, he's not a star player or a Hall of Famer, and his last PSA 10 sold for $88. But we also have a fake Jack Clark Desert Shield card. Now, once again, this is a poorly made fake, fuzzy text, and if this was reviewed underneath a loop, or if you scan the card and you zoom in, you'll also find with the really poorly made fakes that the font, the alignment is quite off, and then you have letterings that are slightly lower and some higher, and some that are crooked, etc. Now, once again, the shape of the shield, while this may be slightly from the scan or the resize of the photo, but I'm assuming that's not, and that if you look at the shape of the shield, it looks slightly compressed. Um, and also, once again, there's this famous small hole you see in the flag. First of all, no stars. The stripes are very indistinct, and then there's like this missing hole within the flag that you see quite often with fakes. Yeah, and once again, the shape, while it's closer than the round bottoms, but it's still a bit off. And also, if you notice the palm trees, it's quite straight, where the authentic um, Desert Shield palm tree has a bit of a curve to it. Okay, and lastly, here's a comparison between the two shields. Now, if you look closely, you'll be able to spot the shields immediately. Okay. First of all, if you look at the banner, there's a bit. This is slightly slanted in, and an authentic Desert Shield banner, this should be straight. And mind you, there are cards that don't have this left border, like the Don Mattingly. But that's fine. It's just I don't know why that was missing. I think it was somewhat um, conflicting with the Topps 40 logo, but basically you'll find that part missing. It's sort of like it's gradually disappears. The second thing, if you notice, is the thickness of the palm trees. Once again, the fakes often have like a wider um, trunk. And then the detail of the flags. First of all, in the authentic shield, you see the stars and the stripes. You can't see the stars and the stripes. Um, and once again, the lettering. Not only is this a bit more distinct, but I don't want to use the word distinct because the only reason why this looks more distinct is because it's flat. And the authentic Desert Shield foil, it's actually three-dimensional, right? Because it's pressed down. So it's embossed, right? And that's why, with the naked eye at first glance, you'll find the lettering on the fake a lot legible. And meanwhile, you'll find the lettering on the authentic less legible. Um, and that leads me to mention also about the surface of the foil. That I find it with a lot of the fakes, you'll notice that it's either they have like a flat glossy surface or one that is very, very rough. Meanwhile, the authentic ones has something in between. It's not glossy, or it just has a bit of like a rough, slightly matte finish to it. And also with the authentic shield, I would like to mention that there are several that are, um, and this could be with the same player, where the color of the shield can be slightly different. Okay, some people call it silver. I just feel that it's just a different, um, it's a different shade of gold. So you may have one that's a bit more yellow goldish, and another one that's slightly more like platinum goldish, and that's all authentic. Now, I do have some fakes of my own, and in the past, if you have collected Desert Shield cards for some time, you'll run into several opportunities to buy fakes. And luckily, with the first three here, I didn't actually buy them and then find out that they were fake. I had made an offer on eBay, and the seller later canceled the sale because he told me he found out that they were fake. And at first, I thought he just didn't want to sell to me, but he later agreed to sell it to me for as a fake. And I told him the only reason why I want to buy it is just I want to study the foil. And as you can see, I actually made DIY slabs identifying that they're counterfeit. So hopefully these cards will never enter the market again. But I think there's quite a large amount of fakes out there, so which it doesn't really matter. Now let me turn on the LED here so you can see it more in detail. Now, these are what I consider to be better fakes. And, well, first of all, the cards are simply from the base 91 top. So there's really not much to talk about in terms of the fakes. Now, let me see. I don't remember if these are glowbacks or not. Let's have a look. Yeah, they don't glow. Or actually, yeah, actually, they may be glowbacks, actually, because sometimes the material of these DIY slabs will interfere with the glows. But the thing is, um, why I consider these to be better fakes is, if we compare these shields to the ones that we just saw, first of all, the shape of the shield looks a lot better than a lot of the samples that I was showing you just now. And the detail of the shield looks pretty good. But it's hard to show you here, though. There are certain things that are red flags. And for example, this was my most recent fake I bought online. And at a first glance, it looks pretty good. But until I put the shield underneath a magnifying glass and I found out the L and D in the shield was crooked. And that's something that you don't find with authentic Desert Shield foil. And luckily, I was able to get a refund from eBay, and I also got to keep this card. But yeah, and if the seller is watching, nope, I didn't sell the card to another seller. This is going to stay counterfeit and out of any collector's hands. But yeah, just so you guys know, there are a lot of fakes that look pretty good. But now I know it's kind of hard to compare. But once you have the real one, this is a real Darryl Strawberry PSA 9, and then you have the fake slab sorry, the fake card next to it, it's a lot easier to compare. And then if you can see the detail of the palm trees here and the detail of the trees here is quite evident. And not to mention, I was saying how the texts were crooked, and that just doesn't happen with the authentic Desert Shield foil. So now, I mean, there are probably more ways that you could spot um, fake Desert Shield cards, and I definitely haven't mentioned everything. But this is just some experience that I gained, whether from talking to other fellow collectors or just researching online, that I would like to share with everyone. But if you have any more methods that you think that can help other collectors detect whether or not you have an authentic or fake Desert Shield card, please share with me. And if you'd like to hear or watch more videos about Desert Shield cards in the future, please subscribe and like my videos. So that will keep me going. And stay tuned for my next video, which is quite an interesting one, because I think with most YouTube videos, it's a lot of people's opinions. And even if, like I was showing you earlier with the Net54 forums, these are just also information provided by individuals. But in my next video, I will have some sources from actually articles back in the 90s about these um, Topps Desert Shield cards, and some new information, at least to me, which I would like to share, and that can further verify some of the details of the set. So if you're interested to find out more about Topps Desert Shield cards, please stay tuned, and I'll talk to you guys later.